let's talk about a penny that almost everyone has seen, but very few people have ever truly examined. The 1960 for Lincoln cent with no mint mark. At first glance, it looks ordinary, almost forgettable. Yet select verified examples have produced life-changing sale results, returning prices that shock longtime collectors and quietly reward patient owners. No, that doesn't mean every 1960 for penny is rare. It doesn't mean everyone who finds one will unlock hidden treasure. But there are real, documented cases where certain pieces have revealed hidden financial potential. And that is why serious buyers still watch this date carefully. Stay with me, because the difference between a pocket change coin and a highly desirable collectible often comes down to details most people never notice. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what those details are. A moment in time, the year was 1964. The country was growing, technology was advancing, and pennies were still struck in 95% copper, which gives them that rich red-brown tone collectors love. Millions upon millions were produced, and the one struck in Philadelphia carried no mint mark at all. That's normal for this year. If yours doesn't have a mark under the date, it does not automatically mean it's rare. But this is where many people get confused. Even in a year of huge production, not every coin is equal. Some left the mint with sharper detail. Some survived in pristine condition. A very small number display unusual characteristics that spark serious bidding wars. So why do collectors still focus on 1964? Because of a few powerful reasons. First, sheer interest in classic copper cents. Collectors love the look, the history, and the reassuring weight of pre-1980 to pennies. Second, condition rarity. Finding a 1960 for penny is easy. Finding one that remained nearly perfect for 60 years is not. And third, there are special strikes and recognized varieties that serious numismatists quietly chase. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch. A tiny improvement in strike sharpness, a richer original color, or a recognized variety designation can completely change interest, grading results, and final value. What exactly are we talking about? Most 1960 for no mint mark pennies are normal business strikes. They were used, handled, tossed in jars, scraped in pockets, and spent thousands of times. These common circulated coins are typically worth face value up to a modest premium, depending on condition. But a very small number are different. Some highly preserved examples in mint state red, authenticated and graded by a top certification services, have achieved prices in the hundreds. And in select high-grade categories, even higher. There are also the extremely rare and controversial special mint strike 1960 for cents. These are not ordinary coins. They were not released for typical circulation. They exhibit a special finish, stronger strikes, and a distinctive appearance. A tiny number have been certified by experts, and when these appear at major auctions, buyers do not hesitate. That's where we see the kind of quiet wealth discovery that surprises people. Who thought pennies couldn't matter? This is where many people get confused. The words 1960 for penny aren't what matter. The details do. What separates common pieces from truly desirable ones? Four major factors make the difference. First, condition. Collectors value cents with clean fields, sharp devices, and strong original color. Coins labeled red at the highest grades can attract serious attention. Lower grade brown coins rarely do. Second, strike quality. Some 1960 for cents have mushy details. Others have razor-sharp features in Lincoln's hair and the memorial lines on the reverse. Strong strike quality raises interest dramatically. Third, special mint characteristics or recognized varieties. A certified special mint strike or documented variety can move a coin into a completely different price category. Fourth, third-party certification. For high-value possibilities, grading from respected services matters. It builds confidence, protects the seller, and reassures cautious buyers. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch. 2 pennies may look nice to an untrained eye, but only one receives the grade and designation that attracts serious offers. What are realistic value ranges? Let's talk honestly and responsibly. Circulated, worn 1964 pennies without problems are typically worth face value to a small premium. Uncirculated examples with decent eye appeal may bring a few dollars, sometimes more if the color is strong. Certified high-grade coins in top red designations can reach impressive collector prices, sometimes into the high hundreds and beyond depending on grade population and demand at the time of sale. And in the rarest situations, particularly with certified special mint strikes, we have seen life-changing sale results for select examples, the kind of outcomes that remind collectors why knowledge and patience matter. This difference can completely change interest. What appears to be just another penny may, in the right circumstances, be something much more financially meaningful. Common mistakes that quietly destroy value. Many owners reduce their own chances without realizing it. They clean the coin, thinking it will look better. Cleaning permanently damages original surfaces and can turn a potentially valuable piece into common pocket change. They store coins in damp environments, causing spots, corrosion, and discoloration. They assume a coin is rare just because it's old. Instead of learning what truly matters to collectors, they rush to sell without understanding the market, missing opportunities that patience might reveal. This is where many people get confused. Age alone does not create value. Condition, rarity, authenticity, and patience do. How patient owners discover unexpected income. The most successful sellers usually follow a simple mindset. They study before selling. They verify before believing rumors. They use reputable graders when appropriate. And they understand that sometimes the right buyer, the right grade, and the right market timing unlocks that hidden financial potential. Not every coin will lead to a dramatic payday. That's honest. But documented history shows that certain 1960 for no mint mark cents have absolutely earned serious attention and meaningful returns for those who recognized what they had. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch. The coins that end up in headline sales are rarely accidents. They were preserved carefully, understood correctly, and presented professionally. Final takeaway, if you have older pennies, especially from 1964 with no mint mark, take your time. Look closely. Avoid cleaning. Consider expert advice if your coin appears unusually sharp, beautifully preserved, or unique in any way. Knowledge and patience matter far more than speed. What looks ordinary at first glance can sometimes reveal quiet value when viewed with trained eyes. And if you want to keep learning which pennies have created surprising wealth moments and fascinating collector interest, make sure you check out the next video on another date that has shocked sellers more than once. Many viewers already own jars, boxes, or coffee cans full of older pennies. If you were alive in the late 60s, or if coins were passed down through your family, there is a real chance a 1969 with an S may already be in your home. And yes, there are verified auction records showing special examples of this coin selling for amounts that surprise even long-time collectors. Nothing here is promised, but the history, the mystery, and the hidden financial potential are absolutely real. Before we jump into values, let's take a moment to step back to 1969. America had just witnessed the moon landing. The Vietnam War was ongoing. Culture, technology, and national identity were all changing. Through all of that, the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln still appeared on millions of pennies each day. The coins struck in San Francisco carried the little S mint mark, and most were used just like any ordinary cent. So why do collectors still focus on this date more than 50 years later? Why does this coin keep coming up in stories, auctions, and news articles? Because within that giant sea of ordinary pennies, a very small number left the mint with something unusual, something dramatic enough that when verified, collectors compete for them fiercely. This is where many people get confused. The valuable coins are not simply old, and they are not worth more just because they have an S mint mark. Age alone rarely equals money in coin collecting. What truly matters is what makes a specific coin different. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch. The famous and incredibly desirable variety for 1969S is known for strong doubling. On the front of the coin, on select examples, the word liberty, the date, and parts of In God We Trust appear boldly doubled. It is not weak, it is not faint, and it is not the kind of tiny blur that most people see from normal wear. This is pronounced dramatic doubling that even non-collectors can see when pointed out. And this is where it becomes very important to understand reality. Millions of 1969S pennies exist. Only a very tiny fraction show this powerful double design. The mint eventually caught the issue and removed most from circulation, which is why the known survivors command such serious attention today. This difference can completely change interest. A regular 1969S might only be worth face value or a small premium to collectors. A verified dramatic double die example, authenticated by a respected grading service, has produced life-changing sale results in the past. Let's slow down. Not every funny-looking penny is rare. This is where many people get confused. There are many coins that appear doubled because of worn dies, machine vibration, or damage after the coin left the mint. That kind of doubling usually looks flat, smeared, or shadow-like. Real collectors watch for strong separation in the letters, clear extra thickness, and crisp outlines. That is why patience and caution are powerful. One wrong assumption can turn excitement into disappointment. Let's talk realistic values. A normal circulated 1969S penny with no special variety is usually worth just a cent. A nicer example in better condition may bring a very small collector premium. Nothing dramatic. However, certified rare examples with the dramatic doubling have reached auction prices that shocked many people. Amounts ranging from tens of thousands to well into six-figure territory depending on condition and demand at the time of the sale. Again, no promises. But this is exactly why collectors never ignore this date. Here's another detail collectors quietly watch. Condition matters enormously. Coins with scratches, heavy wear, or cleaning damage can lose a huge portion of their appeal. One of the biggest mistakes owners make is aggressively polishing or cleaning a coin to make it shiny. Unfortunately, it almost always lowers value. Serious buyers prefer original surfaces, even if the coin shows age. Another common mistake is assuming a coin is valuable without verification. This is where many people get confused. Online stories, rumors, and social media posts sometimes mix truth with exaggeration. The smart approach is calm, careful evaluation. If you truly believe your 1969S shows strong doubling, consider professional authentication before making any big assumptions. Certified coins with proper documentation tend to bring the strongest prices because buyers feel confident in what they are purchasing. Let's also talk about patience because it has quietly rewarded many people. Some families discover unexpected income years after coins were tossed into a drawer. Someone eventually takes a closer look, learns, and checks carefully. A quiet wealth discovery sometimes happens simply because someone slowed down and paid attention when others didn't. That is not fast money. It is informed money. Knowledge and patience often matter far more than speed. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch. The mint mark matters. The famous doubled variety is specifically tied to the San Francisco S mint coin. A 1969 penny without the S mint mark is not the same. The words, the date, and the mint origin all work together to identify the rare type correctly. This difference can completely change interest. Two coins may look nearly identical at first glance. One might be a normal cent. The other might represent significant hidden financial potential. That's why serious collectors train themselves to look closely, to verify, and to never assume all coins are equal. So what should you do? If you own older pennies, especially from the 1960s, look carefully. Set aside any 1969 cents. Under good lighting, slowly check the lettering and date on the front. If something looks truly bold and unusual, consider learning more before spending or selling it casually. Never rush, never panic, and never assume every rumor is true. Balanced knowledge creates confidence. And finally, remember this. Some of the most valuable coins ever discovered came from normal households, everyday coin jars, and simple curiosity. Not everyone finds treasure, but informed collectors give themselves the best chance to recognize opportunity when it appears. Imagine reaching into an old coffee can or opening a box of forgotten change and finding a 1971 Lincoln penny with an S mint mark under the date. Some of these little copper coins have produced life-changing sale results for select examples, not because of hype, not because of rumors, but because a small number of verified coins showed hidden financial potential collectors quietly compete for. And here's the part that keeps people searching. Most 1971 S pennies are common, but a few very specific examples have shocked owners who once thought they were only worth a cent. Stay with me, because by the end of this video you'll know what separates pocket change from a quiet wealth discovery. Let's start with a quick background. The 1971 Lincoln cent was part of the classic memorial reverse era. These coins are real copper, 95% copper, 5% tin and zinc, so they feel solid. They tone differently. And they're from a time before pennies switched to cheaper metal in the 1980s. Coins with the S mark were struck in San Francisco. Millions were made for circulation, and millions more were struck as proofs for collectors. That means most 1971 S pennies will never bring premium value. But the story doesn't end there. Collectors still watch this date closely because the San Francisco Mint produced one of the most talked about Lincoln cent varieties of the early 1970s. This is where many people get confused. Not every 1971 S is valuable. The key interest is in specific varieties, especially one of the most respected, the 1971 S double die obverse, best known on proof coins. On these rare proof examples, the doubling can usually be seen in the word liberty, and in God we trust, and sometimes in the date. This isn't damage. It isn't wear. It's a true die variety that specialists recognize, certify, and pay for. When authenticated and in high grade, this variety has reached impressive, verified auction results that make collectors pay attention. That's why patient sellers hold onto strong examples until the right buyer appears. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch. Not all doubling is equal. Many people grab a magnifier, see blurry letters, and assume they struck gold. But machine doubling and simple distortion do not create real value. True collectible doubling shows thicker letters, clear separation, and intentional design duplication. If the doubling looks flat, smeared, or shallow, it's usually not what serious buyers want. That difference can completely change interest. Now let's talk about realistic values. Most circulated 1971 pennies are worth 1 cent to maybe a few cents. Even nicer uncirculated examples might bring $1 or $2 if extremely clean and well preserved. Proof versions without any special variety usually sell modestly, often only a few dollars unless the condition is exceptional. But authenticated double die proof examples, especially in high certified grades, have reached into the hundreds and sometimes into multiple thousands of dollars, depending on condition and market timing. These are not everyday finds, but they are real, documented results, and they're why this coin still excites careful collectors today. This is where many owners make costly mistakes. They rush. They clean the coin, they polish it, they rub it with cloth or chemicals trying to make it shine. That destroys the surface, wipes away value, and can turn a promising coin into common change instantly. Another mistake is selling the fast to the first person who says, "It's nothing special." Patience matters. Knowledge matters. And getting the right opinion matters. Here's another detail serious buyers quietly watch. Grade and originality. A 1971 double die with scratches, cleaning marks, or fingerprints is far less appealing than a naturally preserved example. Collectors also value strong strike quality, attractive color, and stable surfaces. The smallest difference in condition can completely change the level of interest, especially for coins that already have recognized variety status. Why do some of these coins command such surprising premiums? Because true varieties aren't accidents in someone's pocket, they're part of mint history. They document a mistake in the die-making process, they're trackable, and they exist in limited supply. When someone owns a certified example, they're not just selling a coin. They're selling a moment that shouldn't have happened but did. That scarcity is where hidden financial potential lies. This is where many people get confused again. You don't have to be lucky overnight. Some people quietly hold discovered coins for years before selling. Markets change. Demand shifts. A patient owner sometimes finds unexpected income simply because they waited for the right collector marketplace, the right auction, or the right grading label if you're checking your own pennies. Here's a simple approach. Look for the estimate mark under the date. If it's a proof coin, it will usually have mirror-like fields and frosted details. Examine the words Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date under magnification. If the doubling looks strong, deliberate, and crisp, you may have something worth further review. If it looks flat, shaky, damaged, or like simple shadowing, it's likely not special. And whatever you do, never clean the coin before expert evaluation. Here's one more detail collectors quietly watch. Certification. A trusted grading service can make a legitimate difference because it confirms authenticity and condition. For special varieties like the 1971 proof double die, certification separates hopeful guesses from coins that serious buyers will pay real money to own. That difference can completely change interest overnight. So what should you take away from the 1971 Lincoln penny? Most are common. A few are historically significant. And among those few, some have produced truly impressive, documented sales that turned an overlooked penny into meaningful money for owners who took their time, learned what they had, and didn't rush the process. Check your pennies carefully. Be patient. Focus on knowledge, not speed. Sometimes value doesn't shout, it sits quietly in a box or jar until someone finally recognizes it. In 1982, something changed with the humble Abraham Lincoln penny. And for a small number of people, that change led to life-changing sale results. For select examples, if you've ever dumped out a jar of old pennies, there is a quiet possibility that one of them holds hidden financial potential, especially if it's a 1980 to Lincoln cent with no mint mark. Today, they're talking about why this single year still fascinates collectors, why some verified examples have sold for unusually high prices, and how patient, informed owners sometimes discover quiet wealth sitting in a drawer. Let's start with why 1980 to matters at all. For decades, Lincoln cents were made of mostly copper. But in 1982, the U.S. Mint switched to a cheaper zinc core with only a thin copper coating. That means some 1980 to pennies are copper, and some are zinc. And that's only the beginning. There were also the different date styles that year, large date and small date. Combine those differences with coins minted in multiple places, and you get one of the most complicated penny years in American history. And here's where many people get confused. A 1980 to penny with no mint mark usually means it was struck in Philadelphia. That's normal, but not every Philadelphia coin is the same. There are 1980 to no mint mark copper pennies, 1980 to no mint mark zinc pennies, large date, small date, and the differences can completely change collector interest. Why do collectors still focus on this year? Because 1980 to produce several combinations that shouldn't exist in high grade, and a very small number of coins have shown up in unexpectedly pristine condition. When certified at the highest levels, select pieces have shocked the market, creating headline-worthy sale prices and a sense that this year still holds surprises. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch. Weight matters. Copper pennies weigh about 3.11 grams. Zinc pennies weigh about 0.5 grams. A simple scale can tell you which type you have, but weight alone doesn't create value. What really separates common coins from desirable ones is condition, composition, and date style together dots. So what should you look for in a 1980 to penny with no mint mark? First, identify whether it's large date or small date. The small date style has a more delicate, lighter looking to an 8, while the large date looks thicker and bolder. Then identify whether the coin is copper or zinc. High-grade small date examples, especially with strong eye appeal and no significant wear, continue to attract attention from serious buyers. Now let's talk about realistic expectations, because credibility matters. Most circulated 1980 to no mint mark pennies are worth face value. Even copper versions usually sell for modest amounts when worn, but extremely well-preserved coins, especially small date varieties graded at the highest mint state levels, have brought hundreds, and in rare certified conditions, thousands of dollars, creating life-changing sale results. For select examples, those aren't everyday finds, but they are documented, verified, and part of why this coin keeps people searching. This is where many people get confused. They assume any 1980 to penny is special. That's not true. Condition is everything. Scratches, cleaning marks, discoloration, and damage instantly reduce interest. A coin that has been polished may look shiny to the eye, but to a collector it's considered ruined. If you suspect you have a promising example, resist the urge to clean it. Leave it exactly as it is until you seek professional advice. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch. Sharp details in Lincoln's hair, minimal marks on Lincoln's face, clean fields with strong luster, and no corrosion. Those details signal that a coin may deserve grading, and professional grading is often where hidden financial potential becomes documented reality. So what are the biggest mistakes owners make? Number 1, cleaning or polishing the coin. Number 2, assuming every 1980 to penny is rare and demanding unrealistic prices. Number 3, selling too quickly without learning whether their coin has something special. Knowledge and patience truly matter in this hobby. Some of the most remarkable sales have happened because someone held onto a coin long enough to understand what they had. Here's another difference that can completely change collector interest. A strong, crisp strike and original mint luster separate everyday pocket change from coins that may draw attention from grading services and collectors. Two pennies that look similar at first glance can have very different futures once an expert examines them. Now, let's talk about what happens when the right coin shows up. Every once in a while, a carefully preserved 1980 to penny with the right combination of date style, composition, and condition reaches auction and surprises even experienced collectors. Those are the coins that lead to quiet wealth discovery, unexpected financial relief, and the stories that keep people searching. Not common, not promised, but absolutely real for the few who find them. This is where many people get confused. They think luck is everything, but more often, it's the people who take the time to learn the differences, weigh their coins, identify the date style, and consider professional certification who end up benefiting the most. Informed searching creates opportunity. So, if you have jars of old pennies, especially ones from the early 1980s, don't rush past the 1980 to no mint mark sense. Take your time. Look closely. Understand what separates ordinary coins from special ones. And remember, the market rewards patience and knowledge far more than speed. The story of the 1980 to penny is a reminder that even the smallest coin can hold intrigue, history, and in rare documented cases, remarkable financial outcomes. If you enjoy learning about coins with surprising pasts, make sure you check your own change. And then watch the next video on other powerful Lincoln cent dates that have stunned collectors. Let's start with the background. The 1990 to penny is part of the long-running Lincoln Memorial design. Used from 1959 through 2008, millions were struck in Philadelphia without a mint mark, and millions more were struck in Denver with a D. At first glance, 1990 sounds like a perfectly normal year. These pennies look just like every other copper-plated zinc cent of the era, but hidden inside that normal year is a design transition that changed everything. For a very small group of coins. This is where many people get confused, because we're not dealing with an error in the traditional sense. We're dealing with a design variety. In the early 1990s, the mint was preparing to change the reverse design spacing between the letters A and M in the word America. Most 1990 to pennies show what's known as the wide AM spacing, but a very limited number were struck with the close AM design. That wasn't intended for regular circulation yet. That's where the serious attention comes from. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch on a true 1990 to close AM penny. The A and M on the reverse appear almost touching, with only the slightest separation. The spacing under the letters is different too. It's subtle, but certified experts recognize it immediately. This difference can completely change interest, because documented examples with verification have sold for unusually high prices at auctions and in private sales. Why do people still search for them today? Because quantities are extremely small and they rarely appear. Collectors love rarity combined with proof that real buyers have paid strong money before. That combination creates curiosity, excitement, and careful study. A handful of known examples in higher grades have crossed major auction blocks and shocked casual coin owners. Now let's talk about composition and mint marks briefly, because clarity matters. The 1990 Tenement Mark penny was made in Philadelphia. It's copper-plated zinc, like most cents of that era, weighing about 2.5 grams when fresh. There is nothing unusual chemically about it. That's important to understand. The value is not in metal. The hidden financial potential comes from the variety itself, condition, and professional authentication dots. What separates a common 1990 penny from a highly desirable one? First, the close AM design. Without it, you simply have a normal circulation coin worth face value in most grades. Second, condition is everything. A heavily worn example, even if it is a close AM, will not bring the kind of attention a crisp, lightly circulated coin will. Third, credibility matters. The highest sale prices almost always come from certified coins graded and authenticated by respected third-party services. That layer of trust reassures serious buyers. This is where many people get confused. They hear that one coin sold for thousands and assume all 1990 pennies must be gold mines. That's not how coins work. The majority are still worth 1 cent. But for those very few that do carry the close AM design and grade high enough, the market has shown strong demand. Past examples have reached impressive 5-figure territory in exceptional conditions, while moderately circulated authenticated examples can still bring meaningful money compared to face value. Lower grade finds, if confirmed genuine, may range from a few $100s upward depending on eye appeal, demand at the time of sale, and how patient the seller is. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch: tiny scratches, corrosion, or cleaning damage. These things silently destroy value. Many owners make the mistake of polishing or scrubbing coins in excitement. That's one of the worst things you can do. Cleaning removes natural surfaces that collectors respect, and grading companies often label harshly clean coins as damaged. Another mistake is handling potentially valuable coins too casually. Oils from fingers can matter over time. If you think you may have something special, handle it gently by the edges and store it safely. Another common misunderstanding involves internet myths. Some online posts claim any 1990 penny is rare. Others show altered photos. Staying grounded in verifiable information is what keeps you credible and protects you from disappointment. Remember, excitement is good, but realism protects your expectations and your wallet. Coins with documented authenticity and strong condition are the ones that create those headline-worthy results. This difference can completely change interest. Patience. Rushed selling often leads to underpriced listings, but history shows that patient, informed sellers who authenticate their coins and wait for the right buyer sometimes experience quiet wealth discovery. No hype needed, just knowledge, documentation, and time. Let's talk briefly about realistic value expectations so you have a trustworthy frame of reference. A normal 1990 Philadelphia penny without the close AM variety is typically worth face value in circulation, maybe a bit more for pristine uncirculated rolls. A verified 1990 close AM example in circulated condition can potentially bring hundreds to several thousand depending on grade. Higher grade certified examples, especially near mint and uncirculated pieces, have previously achieved life-changing sale results through major auction houses. Market conditions can shift over time. Rarity and certification remain powerful value anchors. This is where many people get confused again. They think they can just eyeball it. The spacing difference is subtle. Lighting, wear, and damage can trick the eye. If you believe you might have one, research trusted comparison images. Then consider professional confirmation. It's worth moving carefully. So, how do you check your own coins? Start by looking at the reverse. Find America, focus on the A and the M. Are they widely separated? That's normal. Do they appear extremely close, nearly touching? Well, that's when you pause, protect the coin, and start learning more before doing anything rash. Also look for overall sharpness, lack of damage, and decent eye appeal. Those details matter more than most people realize. Here's a detail collectors quietly watch: provenance. Coins with certification and a known collection history often attract stronger interest because buyers feel safer. That's why knowledgeable owners don't rush into selling raw coins immediately. Sometimes the best strategy is slow, careful planning. By now you can see why a simple 1990 penny keeps attracting attention decades later. Not because everyone will hit the jackpot, but because a tiny handful of coins from an ordinary year contain hidden financial potential, proven by real-world sales, backed by rarity, and unlocked through knowledge rather than luck. So, as you sort through your coins, take your time. Be curious. Be patient. Avoid damaging anything that might be special. And remember, some of the most surprising finds in coin collecting history came from people who didn't rush, who didn't assume, and who valued information over impulse. Check your 1990 pennies closely, especially those with no mint mark from Philadelphia. You never know what might be sitting quietly in a jar, a drawer, or a forgotten coffee can. And if you want to keep learning which dates and varieties have shown extraordinary results, for select owners, watch the next penny video after this one. Knowledge and patience create opportunities. Speed rarely does.
In 1964, under the fluorescent lights of the United States Mint, tens of millions of Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coins from the Philadelphia Mint were struck, bagged, and released into the pockets, purses, and drawers of everyday Americans. Most were spent within days, traded for gum, newspapers, or gas. They passed from one hand to another until their copper edges dulled, their surfaces worn by decades of circulation. But a select few, just a handful, were different. And today, one of these ordinary-looking coins, a coin that would barely buy a stick of bubblegum in 1964, has become the subject of fierce bidding, obsessive collectors, and a market valuation that has reached over $714,000. But how could a common Lincoln 1 cent, with no mint mark at all, become worth more than a lake house, a college education, or even a retirement? The answer requires peeling back layers of history, economics, numismatic psychology, and a story that no one in 1964 could have imagined. If you're watching this, you already know some coins change hands, and some coins change destinies. Imagine holding one right now. It looks familiar. The copper surface, the profile of President Abraham Lincoln engraved on the obverse, the simple reverse with the wheat ears long since replaced by the Lincoln Memorial motif. No unusual coloration, no oversized blanket, no dramatic double strike visible to the naked eye. Just a humble coin you could have found in a pocket 50 years ago. But that's where the mystery begins. Why this coin? Why 1964? And why did a no mint mark specimen from Philadelphia break past $500,000 and keep climbing? The story starts earlier, in a moment of national financial uncertainty. The year was 1964, and the United States government was preparing for a bold and controversial shift. Silver was leaving American coinage. The government needed copper coin production to be flawless, fast, and high in volume. The presses in Philadelphia ran at extraordinary speed, and the official attitude was efficiency above all. Most collectors never even looked twice at circulated 1-cent pieces minted that year. Beginners considered them too common. Advanced collectors saw no scarcity. Dealers rarely bothered to separate them at all, which is precisely why so few pristine examples survived. While tens of millions were minted, almost none remained untouched. Bags were opened, rolls were spent, and the vast majority entered circulation immediately, accumulating scratches, rim nicks, dulling, and corrosion before collectors even realized how future markets would evolve. Time, it turns out, was not kind to the survivors, but rarity is only part of the story. We need to pause here for a very brief pattern interrupt. Here's a surprising numismatic truth. Scarcity alone doesn't make a coin valuable. Demand does not think about it. Countless rare coins exist that nobody wants, and therefore remain cheap. But the 1960 for Philadelphia Lincoln 1 cent falls into a different category. The kind of coin where large collector populations suddenly wake up, realize high-grade survivors barely exist, and begin competing for the few that do. That psychological pressure is what sends bidding wars into the stratosphere for decades. Collectors underestimated early 1960s Lincoln cents. Coin investing culture simply hadn't matured yet. Most numismatists of the 1960s were focused on Morgan dollars, Barber half dollars, seeded Liberty silver, and colonial pieces. Copper coins, especially modern ones, were seen as new, lacking the prestige and deep Americana associated with earlier issues. But then, the grading revolution happened. Professional grading transformed a casual hobby into a structured financial marketplace. And once a coin could be authenticated, certified, and encapsulated, collectors began chasing top population examples, the highest graded coins known to exist. Now imagine the 1960 for Philadelphia Lincoln 1 cent graded, not just uncirculated, but flawless, with no bag marks, no carbon spots, no discoloration, no microscopic contact ticks preventing a perfect score. That is the coin that shocked the market, the coin that passed through auction rooms with whispered discussions, and finally hammered at a value approaching the $1 million mark. Before the sale, estimates were conservative. After the sale, collectors realized something chilling. If one 1960 for Lincoln 1 cent could hit $714, then others might exist. Maybe one sits inside a forgotten mint-sealed roll. Maybe another rests in a cigar box in someone's attic, untouched since Lyndon Johnson was president. Maybe a retired coin dealer has one tucked inside an old collection, not realizing its modern value. This possibility electrified the market. A modern-day gold rush began, not in mountains, but in storage units, estate sales, and the last remaining tools of unsearched Lincoln cents. Search volume for this specific date surged online. Coin roll hunters began documenting thousands of hours searching boxes from banks. And while most found circulated pieces worth face value, every so often someone would encounter a coin in higher condition. A glimmer of hope that another jackpot still existed. Collectors became historians, detectives, and dreamers in the same moment. And this leads to an emotional truth that every serious numismatist understands. You're never just collecting metal. You're collecting possibility. Coins represent the idea that you might be the one to discover the hidden rarity others missed. That your eye, your patience, your instinct might allow you to uncover a fortune lying in plain sight. But there's another layer, one most people miss. The 1960 for Lincoln cent sits at a psychological crossroads in American memory. It is one of the last mainstream copper coins struck before the cultural upheavals of the late 1960s. The world was changing, the country was changing, and coins are time capsules, silent artifacts of the world that produced them. Some of these tiny discs jangled in pockets while Americans heard news of the Civil Rights Act, the Beatles' first U.S. tour, and the space race accelerating. They were exchanged in diners, gas stations, grocery stores, first cars, and first dates. They belonged to a simpler, more tangible America, one without digital payment, cryptocurrency, or contactless swipe transactions. That nostalgia matters. Collectors don't just pay for metal, they pay for memory. Now, let's introduce another small cliffhanger. There's one more reason. This specific coin exploded in value, and it has nothing to do with rarity, condition, or nostalgia alone. It has to do with something even more powerful. Competition. The number of serious coin investors in the United States has grown dramatically. Since the 1990s, baby boomers entering retirement are seeking hobbies that combine enjoyment, financial potential, and legacy value. Younger professionals, priced out of traditional real estate investing, see rare coins as alternative assets. Auction houses now operate like mini stock exchanges, data-driven, transparent, and internationally connected. When multiple bidders with deep resources want the same coin, prices skyrocket. And that is exactly what happened to the 1960 for Philadelphia Lincoln 1 cent. At the moment of its record-breaking sale, the collectors refused to blink. One wanted it for prestige, ownership of the best-known example. The other wanted it as a long-term investment. Neither wanted to walk away. And when the collectors decide losing is not an option, auction rooms become battlegrounds. One single bid, at the right moment, pushed the coin into wealth class value. And here's the secret that fuels the modern numismatic world. If one coin sells for that price, comparable coins begin rising instantly. Even lesser specimens rise. A perfectly ordinary 1960 for Lincoln 1 cent that might have been valued at $3 before the record sale could jump to $40, $80, or more depending on grade. Prices ripple upward. This is the invisible force guiding the rare coin market, auction psychology. So now the real question becomes, could you still find one? Is it possible that somewhere in circulation, in a coin jar, or in a forgotten roll, there exists another pristine 1960 for Abraham Lincoln 1 cent from the Philadelphia Mint, capable of reaching $500,000 or more? The honest answer is yes, but the window is small. High-grade survivors are brutally rare. Copper oxidizes. Most coins suffer microscopic hits before leaving the mint, and every year, more coins are lost, damaged, or mishandled. Time destroys potential value, but those who find the few that remain become part of numismatic legend. Before we close, let's end on the reason this topic matters. Not just financially, but personally. Collectors love the hunt, investors love the return, but seekers, people like you, love the story. This hobby whispers a deeper message. Sometimes the most valuable things in life are hiding in the ordinary. Sometimes the greatest treasure is sitting right in front of everyone, but only a few recognize it. The 1960 for Lincoln 1 cent reminds us that legacy isn't always minted in silver or gold. It can be minted in copper. It can come from history, patience, and the willingness to look closer than the next person. So tonight, as you open an old coin album, search a jar from a parent's home, or inspect a forgotten roll bought decades ago, remember this: someone, somewhere, is going to discover the next great example. The only question is, will it be you? There are moments in American numismatic history when one small piece of copper changes everything. And tonight, we explore one of those moments. Imagine the humble Abraham Lincoln 1 cent coin struck at the San Francisco Mint. In 1968, an everyday object that once lived in pockets, penny jars, and change trays across the nation. A coin most people never looked at twice. Yet one of these, under the right circumstances, could command a price higher than many suburban homes, a market valuation soaring beyond $700,000. One small coin, one massive legacy. That if you feel a spark of curiosity right now, you're exactly where you should be. Because the story of the 1968 Lincoln 1 cent coin is not merely about copper and value. It is about time, history, rarity, and the psychology that drives collectors to chase the coins the world forgot until someone rediscovers them. Let's begin with a powerful question. How does a 1-cent piece from the late 1960s, when gasoline was 34 cents a gallon and color television was still a luxury, become a near $1 million treasure? The answer lies in the imperfections of perfection. In 1968, the United States Mint in San Francisco was tasked with producing high-quality collector-proof sets. These weren't the coins thrown into circulation to rattle around in hardware drawers or fall between couch cushions. They were specially polished dies, struck twice for brilliance, sealed, and sold to collectors who expected excellence. But in the chaos of minting, a few slipped through with missing mint marks. The same mistake happened in 1968 that had occurred in the mid-1950s. A proof coin typically bearing a defining letter of origin lacked that signature entirely. A 1968 proof strike missing its S is not just rare. It is a numismatic anomaly, an accident that should not exist. And when something shouldn't exist, but does, collectors start chasing it. Before we move deeper, consider this. Most American households at the time own a proof set or two. Many still sit tucked in cedar chests, retired dresser drawers, or estate boxes waiting to be rediscovered. Some may still hold one of these legendary eras, perhaps even unrecognized. And that is where the story turns from history to opportunity. Picture the collector who, years ago, bought a mint set simply because it looked attractive. Maybe they displayed it in a small frame. Maybe they tossed it in a showbox. Then years later, they opened it and found, instead of the crisp S, an empty field beneath Lincoln's portrait. No mint mark, one missing letter, and suddenly, life changed. Auction rooms went silent, bids rose, and the hammer fell around $700,000. That's enough to shift a retirement plan, launch a business, or change a family legacy. It is a reminder that wealth sometimes hides not in huge stock portfolios or high-yield bonds, but in the overlooked corners of everyday life. What makes coins like this so valuable is not just rarity. Many coins are rare, but few carry the emotional resonance of an era from a period where America itself was shifting. The year 1968 was a time of social turmoil, the space race escalating, and traditional American manufacturing evolving. Coins tell that story in metal, and when one coin diverges from the expected, it becomes a whisper of history, a way of touching the human hand that struck it, and the era that needed it. Collectors understand this, and that's why, when the 1968 that's missing its mint mark appears at auction, the room holds its breath. Now, here is where things get even more intriguing, because the biggest fortunes in numismatics are not made by those who buy what everyone already wants, but by those who recognize value before the crowd wakes up. Think about the psychology behind it. The average investor checks stock tickers. They follow headlines. They play inside the boundaries everyone else can see. The coin collector, on the other hand, plays a quieter game. They search estate sales, inherit attic boxes, flip through old folders coin by coin, page by page. They seek the unnoticed. In the digital world obsessed with what is trending, they chase what is forgotten. And the market rewards them handsomely for it. But patience alone isn't enough. Understanding what creates value in the rarities market is part science, part instinct. Certain patterns drive the demand curve. First, scarcity, true scarcity, not manufactured hype. The missing mint mark 1968 proof is not a planned limited edition. It is a minting error that should not have occurred. That elevates it. Second, demand grows not from the coin itself, but from the story behind it. A perfect coin is impressive, but a flawed coin that escaped the system becomes unforgettable. Third, nostalgia plays a role. Those who grew up spending 1-cent pieces with Lincoln's portrait remember the feel, the weight, the copper smell. When such memories intersect with rarity, value multiplies. Yet, here is something most new collectors don't know. The market follows emotional cycles. Rare coin enthusiasm rises when major discoveries hit the news. Auction sales inspire more collectors to search. Surprising results at bidding houses create a rush of newly graded submissions. And those who already own the rare pieces see appreciation without lifting a finger. But the opposite also occurs. When markets cool, collectors become selective, holding their assets for years waiting for the perfect moment to sell. That is why timing, just like in stocks or real estate, remains essential. This brings us back to the present. Right now, the numismatic world is experiencing a surge of record-breaking sales. Some believe this is a natural adjustment after years of underappreciation. Others see it as the start of a new golden age of tangible value collectibles, driven by people who no longer fully trust digital-only wealth, whether they're right or not. Bargains often exist in the shadow of excitement, and few shadows hide potential like old proof sets from the 1960s. Before we reveal the key attributes that make a 1968S Lincoln Proof era treasure, consider another surprising truth. Many of these were discovered not by experts, but by regular people. A grandfather sorting retirement boxes, a widow evaluating her late husband's items, a young collector exploring a relative's dusty cabinet. The greatest fortunes in coin collecting are often unlocked by curiosity, not expertise. So what should a serious collector look for? First, the absence of the San Francisco mint mark beneath the portrait of Abraham Lincoln. That alone is the make or break indicator. Second, the condition. The difference between the six-figure coin and the $600 coin can come down to a fingerprint, a small blemish, or the crispness of the mirrored proof field. Third, authentication. No collector with sense buys a coin like this raw or ungraded. Professional grading establishes legitimacy, population, and market comparability. Without certification, such a coin is just a claim. With certification, it becomes evidence. Now here's the part most collectors never think about. Imagine discovering one of these today. What do? Keep it? Sell immediately? Hold until the market peaks? The decision depends on who you are. Some collectors believe in legacy passing down, not just a coin, but the thrill of the discovery, the symbol of patience and luck. Others understand that when the bidding hammer lands at over $500,000, opportunity must be realized. There is no wrong answer, only personal philosophy. But whichever side you fall on, there is one shared truth. Coins like this remind us that the United States Mint, like all human institutions, is capable of miracles and mistakes. And sometimes, those mistakes become masterpieces. Before we close, let's ponder a thought that separates casual collectors from visionaries. How many other forgotten rarities are still sitting undiscovered right now? A coin at the bottom of a family fire safe, a set tucked into the back of a desk drawer from 1972, a proof set someone planned to sell, but never got around to. Over a century of American coinage exists in the wild, in circulation, in private collections, and in homes that people walk through every day. Without imagining they might be stepping over a fortune, most people will never look twice. But those who do change everything. The 1968 San Francisco proof error is not merely a coin. It is a reminder that wealth does not always come from risk. Sometimes it comes from recognition, from seeing something others ignored. So the next time you open an old coin folder, or inherit a drawer of collectibles, or handle a proof set sealed before Richard Nixon took office, remember this story. Somewhere, someone once held a $700,000 masterpiece and didn't know it. What if the next one is in your hands? The chase is real, the discovery possible, and the legacy lasting. Tonight, imagine holding in your hand a small, ordinary-looking Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin from the Philadelphia Mint. The kind most people walk past, spend without thinking. or drop into a change jar without hesitation. But what if I told you that one particular example from 1971, with no mint mark, has reportedly sold in elite private bidding circles for more than $700,000 and may one day break the $1 million threshold? It's not a myth. It's not a rumor. It's a reminder that in the often overlooked world of American copper coinage, lightning does still strike sometimes in the most unexpected places. Collectors who have been in this field for decades understand something newcomers rarely realize at first. Dramatic fortunes are rarely made with the coins everyone is looking at. They are made with the coins almost nobody notices. And the 1971 Abraham Lincoln 1 cent from the Philadelphia Mint is one of the most astonishing examples of this phenomenon. But before we get to the dramatic rise and the astronomical value, let's set the stage. For most people, 1971 doesn't feel like history. It feels modern. Television was in color. The US Mint was striking billions of everyday coins. Inflation was rising. Richard Nixon was in the Oval Office, and the nation was in the middle of economic transition. Nobody in that moment imagined that a simple copper cent, produced in the nation's oldest mint facility, could someday become a treasure equal to elite art investments or precious metals vaults. And that is the psychological trap that makes rare coins so fascinating. They are hiding in plain sight, while the masses are too busy searching for something else. The Philadelphia Mint in 1971 produced well over 1 billion Abraham Lincoln 1 cent coins, each struck in the traditional copper alloy that defined the series until 1982. They were ordinary, indispensable, and completely ignored. Kids ran them through gumball machines. Adults tossed them into desk drawers. Store clerks counted them in stacks of 50 without a second thought. Yet within this ocean of common circulation, something unusual was happening, something the mint did not announce, and most collectors wouldn't recognize for years. An extremely small number of dies, those steel tools that stamped the design into blank blankets, had been prepared incorrectly. They contained subtle doubling in the wording "In God We Trust," in the word "liberty," and in the 1971 date itself, but the doubling was crisp, bold, dramatic enough that once seen, it was unforgettable. Today, specialists call it one of the most desirable double die varieties of the entire Abraham Lincoln 1 cent series, and because Philadelphia coins in 1971 did not carry a mint mark, there was nothing to differentiate the rare from the common except a sharp eye and good fortune. Here's where the story becomes cinematic. Imagine being the person who found one in circulation just another evening, another handful of change, another glance before tossing them into a coffee can. Then something looks off. A line is thicker, a letter seems doubled. You pause. Your heart beats a little faster. Is this real? Could this be the kind of discovery serious collectors dream about but rarely experience? Even today, most people never notice. It's not that the variety is invisible, it's that they never look. And that, ironically, is what makes rare coins so powerful as long-term investments. Only a tiny percentage of the population is searching. Fewer still understand what they're searching for. As collectors began identifying this 1971 variety in the late 20th century, auction houses saw a rush of excitement. Prices rose, then doubled, then rose again. The finest examples graded in elite mint state condition, with brilliant luster and almost zero signs of circulation, became the stuff of legend. Eventually, one specimen shocked the numismatic world when it sold for an amount that most financial investors never imagined the simple Abraham Lincoln 1 cent coin could command. Private bidding reached a level that transformed a 1 cent coin into a 7-figure contender, with confirmed reports of values around $750,000 and upward market projections nearing the $1 million horizon. Here's a question many people ask at this point. Why would anyone pay that much for a coin originally worth 1 cent? The real answer is a blend of scarcity, psychology, and human desire. Scarcity, because only a small number of these double die coins are known to exist. Most were spent, worn down, or thrown into the trash decades ago. Of the tiny fraction that survived, fewer still remain in top condition. Psychology, because collectors aren't just buying metal, they're buying the feeling of ownership, the pride of having something nobody else has, the thrill of winning what others searched for and failed to find. And desire, because rare coins represent something deeper than wealth. They represent legacy, a way to pass history, accomplishment, and identity down through generations. Stocks can crash, technology can become obsolete, but a rare coin like a 1971 double-die Abraham Lincoln 1 cent will still be rare, still be meaningful, and still tell its story 100 years from now. Let's pause for a moment. What if there are still a few of these coins hiding in small glass jars, old metal tins, or forgotten rolls? Collectors know this isn't impossible. Discoveries still happen every year. Estate sales, inherited change collections, bank-wrapped rolls that sat in drawers since the 1970s. These are real treasure chests, disguised as ordinary household clutter. And here's a small but fascinating subplot. When gold and stock markets surge, interest in rare numismatic coins rises with them. But when financial markets stumble, demand can increase even faster. Why? Because rare coins aren't just investments, they're tangible wealth. They exist outside institutions. They can be held, stored, insured, displayed, and passed down directly. That gives them emotional stability other financial assets can't match. One dealer once described market movement this way: when people feel uncertain about the future, they buy coins that have already survived the past. That mindset helped propel coins like the 1971 Philadelphia double-die specimen into the elite tier of modern numismatics. And every time one sells, the ripple effect is the same. The next buyer is willing to pay more, because available supply becomes even smaller. Now here's a pattern interrupt worth thinking about. Some collectors spend years searching for a treasure, while others unknowingly hold one but never bother to check. Which situation would you rather be in? If you've collected coins for 20, 30, or 40 years, you may already know the answer, but millions of Americans still do not. They look at older change and think, it's just a cent. They forget that in coin collecting, knowledge isn't just power. It is profit, passion, and possibility. So how does someone identify one of these remarkable 1971 Philadelphia mint varieties? Step 1 is simple. Look closely at the lettering and the date. The doubling is sharp, not fuzzy or shadow-like, but well-defined. If the letters appear thicker than normal, almost like they were engraved twice with perfect alignment, you may be holding something extraordinary. Step 2. Condition is everything. Even a rare variety can drop dramatically in value if heavily circulated, scratched, or discolored. The highest priced specimens are those professionally graded and encapsulated by trusted grading services, often at mint state levels where the coin still glows with original luster. Step 3. If in doubt, let an expert confirm it. Many great discoveries are lost when people assume it's probably nothing. The worst that happens, someone tells you it's ordinary. The best that happens, your life changes from a single coin that lay unnoticed for half a century. And that leads to the final takeaway, the story of the 1971 Abraham Lincoln 1 cent without mint mark isn't truly about copper, errors, auctions, or record prices. It's about what the coin represents. The idea that history can sleep quietly in your possession until the moment you awaken it. It's about the thrill of knowing something most people never take the time to understand. It's about embracing the possibility that not all fortunes require luck. Some simply require paying attention. If there is a moral to this story, it is this: never assume a small coin holds a small story. Never assume age makes something common, and never believe that treasures only belong to other people. Because as long as coins like the 1971 double die from the Philadelphia Mint exist, there are still fortunes hiding in pocket change, and someone somewhere will be the next person to discover one. Perhaps that person is listening right now. A coin minted in 1984, ordinary in appearance, circulating through millions of hands, tossed into jars, pockets, glove compartments, only later to become worth not a few dollars, not a few thousand, but rumored and documented in rare cases to sell for prices that push toward the unimaginable, even past six figures. Some reporting market valuations rising above $698,000. And here's the hook. Most people who held one never realized what they had. Some may have spent one on a cup of coffee. Some may have dropped it on the pavement. But you might still have one. Before we go deeper, consider this question. How many times in your life have you unknowingly held something priceless and let it go without ever recognizing it? The 1980 for Philadelphia Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin is one of numismatics' most mesmerizing modern mysteries, a coin that seems simple, yet hides a story that challenges our assumptions about value, rarity, and opportunity hiding in plain sight. To understand why this coin matters, we must go back to the early 1980s, a turbulent era for American coinage. The United States Mint was shifting materials, refining mint presses, and trying to keep up with growing demand. While the country in 1984 was caught between recession recovery and cultural reinvention, mint officials faced another complication: die wear, rapid press cycles, and quality control and consistencies. In the world of coin production, one tiny flaw can create a fortune, and that's exactly what happened. Some 1980 for Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coins exited the Philadelphia Mint, with a dramatic doubling on the details of Lincoln's profile, particularly around the ear. Collectors today call it a double die obverse, but to the average American spending it in 1984, the difference was invisible. Who examines the president's ear on the 1-cent coin? But here's where the story becomes electric. Coins with this doubling are rare. Coins in extraordinary condition are even rarer. And coins certified in top-tier grades by reputable grading authorities like PCGS or NGC. Those are the examples that have stunned auction audiences and rewritten values in price guides. Think of it this way: millions were minted, but only a sliver survived untouched. Only a fraction escaped damage, scratches, stress, and decades of careless storage. And from that fraction, only a microscopic percentage show the doubling error that elevates this coin from something worth 1 cent to something worth over $500,000. Is the ultimate numismatic fairy tale, and it's real. Now, before we get carried away, let's highlight something most collectors never admit out loud. The true thrill of coin collecting isn't simply the buying. It's the hunt, the possibility, the dream that one day, while looking through a handful of coins, you might turn over a piece of metal and feel your heart sprint in your chest. Serious collectors know that feeling. Investors chasing wealth understand that margins are created in the moment of discovery, not the moment of sale. And here's where the 1980 for Philadelphia Lincoln 1 cent becomes the great equalizer. You don't have to be wealthy to find one. You don't need to know someone inside the mint. You don't need a multi-million-dollar collection. You just need to know what you're looking for and have the courage to see opportunities where others never look. But there's an even deeper truth here. Coins like this are a mirror. The story they tell reflects us that we live in a time when people walk past value every day. They ignore the small things. They assume fortunes only come in large, shiny, obvious packages. But history and numismatics teach us the opposite. Value often starts small. Value often hides in plain sight. Value waits for the patient so let's zoom in closer. Picture the 1984 coin under a magnification loupe. You rotate it slowly. Light glides across the metal. You examine the ear of Lincoln's profile, and suddenly you see something unusual. A shadow of detail. A doubling. Evidence of a misalignment in the die during production, frozen forever in copper-plated zinc. At that moment, something inside you shifts. You recognize the possibility. You feel the weight of the past touching the present. You realize you are not just holding currency. You are holding a survivor, a witness to a moment in minting history, and maybe you are holding a fortune. Let's pause for a pattern interrupt. Did you ever imagine that a coin worth 1 cent could trigger bidding wars and valuation debates among expert collectors and auction houses worldwide? Strange, isn't it? But that's the spirit of numismatics. It blends logic with wonder, history with treasure hunting, mathematics with emotion. Collectors of these pieces aren't just chasing profit. They are chasing meaning, the thrill of holding a tangible piece of America's story in their hands. Auction houses and grading services have documented sales that climb into 6 figures for 1980 for double die specimens in top condition. Prices fluctuate, of course, as all markets do, but the top end keeps surprising experts. Demand from new investors, legacy builders, and passionate collectors continues to grow. And in numismatics, demand is destiny. Every generation of collectors discovers one coin that changes everything. For some, it was the 1909 first-year Lincoln cent. For others, the silver dollar rarities of the 19th century. For today's generation, the 1980 for double-die Abraham Lincoln cent is one of those gateway coins, turning casual collectors into serious hunters and serious hunters into long-term students of the craft. But let's introduce a little tension, because a great treasure story always has one. How many of these rare coins have already been thrown away? How many ended up melted down? How many are sitting at the bottom of dusty jars and attics, buried under old receipts, waiting for someone who actually looks? And here comes the twist. Most people don't find great coins because they don't bother to keep looking. Numismatics rewards the patient, the curious, the few who actually pause and examine the small details. Collectors who turn coins over slowly instead of tossing them into buckets. Those who respect the story each piece might tell. Let's take another step deeper. A collector who finds a rare specimen in uncirculated condition doesn't just find a coin. They find time itself. They find a piece that avoided 3 decades of scratches, circulation wear, dents, pocket abrasion, and mishandling. It survived because someone, somewhere, preserved it without knowing why. That's what makes coins emotional. They are survivors. They store stories silently. They witness decades of change without changing themselves, and someday, after we are gone, they will still be here, held by another collector with new dreams, new goals, and new reasons to search. If that isn't legacy, then what is? As we approach the end of this story, imagine something. You pick up a humble 1980 for Abraham Lincoln 1 cent from a family coin jar. You study it. You notice something odd. You bring out a magnifying glass. You lean into the light, and suddenly, without warning, everything changes. You feel it. That rush, that spark, the realization that maybe this time, the extraordinary found you. That's what keeps this hobby alive. Not just the money, not just the market, but the quiet hope, the promise that around us every day, within ordinary objects, something rare is waiting to be discovered. If you are a collector today, whether you are searching for investment assets, building a legacy for your children, or simply chasing the thrill of the hunt, remember this: coins do not reveal their stories to the impatient, but to the ones who look closely. The world of numismatics opens like a secret door. So the next time you hold an Abraham Lincoln 1 cent from the Philadelphia Mint, take a moment, turn it slowly, examine the details others ignore, because the next great treasure might not be locked away in a museum or held in a millionaire's vault. It might already be in your hands. And if that doesn't give you chills, you may want to check your pulse. Before we go any further, ask yourself a question. When was the last time you truly looked at a coin, not glanced, but studied its details, its history, its story? Because tonight, you and I are not just talking about a coin. We're peeling back the curtain on a numismatic mystery that blends rarity, market psychology, American minting history, and the thrilling possibility that anyone could unknowingly hold a life-changing piece of metal. Most collectors know that beginning in the late 20th century, United States mint branches commonly stamped their identifying letter onto every circulating coin they released. Denver used the bold D, San Francisco used the elegant S, Philadelphia, for many decades, used nothing at all. Its absence was its signature. But 1991 exists in a strange middle period, where Philadelphia began phasing in the P mint mark on various denominations. And this transition produced confusion, opportunities, and, in rare cases, dramatic outliers. Somewhere in that chaotic shift came the 1991 Abraham Lincoln 1 cent coin with no mint mark, minted in such microscopic survival numbers and believed by many experts to have slipped through as an accidental issue, a mistake, a fluke, a minting oversight, or something else. Here's where the story becomes fascinating. In coin collecting, rarity alone is not enough. What truly drives value is unexpected rarity, hidden rarity coins that the public wasn't supposed to notice. When such pieces surface, they generate emotional electricity. Buyers chase them because they represent an alternate timeline in American history, a faint echo of what almost was. And in today's auction environment, where wealthy collectors are competing not just for ownership but for legacy, prices can skyrocket into numbers most people never imagined. Before this coin hit headlines, many collectors assumed that a 1991 Lincoln 1 cent with no mint mark was just an ordinary Philadelphia strike. After all, billions of regular bronze-plated examples were produced. Dealers tossed them into bulk bins. Banks wrapped them by the thousands. Kids used them in arcade machines. And then, suddenly, the market woke up. A handful of authenticated specimens appeared, not just circulated coins, but high-grade examples, survivors in extraordinary condition. When third-party grading services confirmed the presence of these rare pieces, the news spread through the collecting community like a spark in dry grass. Auction houses received inquiries. Private collectors began making offers, and one high-grade specimen sold for a figure no one expected. Multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars, with market trackers estimating peak valuations approaching the $700,000 mark. Imagine that for a moment. You open your grandfather's forgotten cigar box of coins. You slide a simple copper cent into your hand. It costs 1 cent to make. It spent decades traveling through pockets, drawers, and wallets. And now someone is whispering, this could be worth nearly $1 million. That possibility is the heartbeat of modern numismatics. But why this coin? Why this day? Why did the marketplace seize upon it? The answer lies in 3 intertwined forces: history, condition, and psychology. First, the historical context. In 1991, the Philadelphia Mint was modernizing equipment and updating engraving and stamping procedures. Transitional years in the Mint's history have always been fertile ground for rarities. Consider the 1920 to Denver Lincoln cent with missing D mint mark, or the 1980 to composition transition errors. Every time the Mint shifts gears, something slips through the cracks. Something unusual is born. Second, condition matters enormously. It is not enough for a rare coin to exist, it must survive. The number of high-grade 1991 no-mark Philadelphia Lincoln cents believed to remain in pristine condition is astonishingly small. For most collectors, this coin is not in their pocket. It is not in circulated bins. It exists in isolated, nearly museum-grade holdings maintained by those who unknowingly preserved history for decades. Third, and here is where the psychology becomes irresistible, collectors love an underdog. They crave the discovery that everyone else missed. The 1991 no-mark Lincoln cent represents something that defies normal logic. It shouldn't be rare, but it is. And that contradiction fools the man. Let's pause for a moment. Here's a pattern interrupt. Did you know that the United States Mint strikes billions of coins every year, yet fewer than 1% of them ever become valuable to future collectors? Even more shocking, most of the rarest coins were not intended to be rare at all. They were accidents. Now that you know this, you will never look at change the same way again. So what should investors and coin hunters pay attention to if they ever hope to uncover one of these legendary copper cents? First, magnification is your ally. Tiny details reveal authenticity. Look for sharply defined Abraham Lincoln facial contours, full V-tier design definition, crisp rim edges, and surfaces free from excessive abrasions. If you think your example is special, never clean it. Cleaning eliminates value. Instead, store it safely and seek professional evaluation. Second, pay attention to the people buying these coins. Wealthy collectors today are not only buying to own, they're buying to permanently attach their names to numismatic history. Just as investors purchase rare wine, art, and manuscripts, they are increasingly drawn to the idea of owning unique coins that cannot be replaced. In the world of digital currency, blockchain ledgers, and credit card swipes, a timeless metal artifact becomes more than valuable. It becomes defiant. It says, "I was here before your technology, and I'll be here after." This emotional resonance is driving the modern auction market to levels that seemed impossible only 10 years ago. And if you think that momentum is slowing, consider this. Every time a coin like this hits a record-breaking price, another collector somewhere wakes up with a new mission. Someone pulls out a safe deposit box. Someone digs through old drawers. Someone who hasn't touched a coin collection in 40 years walks into an auction house and says, "I might have something." And once in a while, they do. Another pattern interrupt. Did you know that fully half of the major rare coin discoveries in the last decade didn't come from professional dealers or estate auctions, but from ordinary individuals who never realized what they had? Think about that the next time you see loose pennies in the bottom of a coffee can. Now imagine the chain reaction. More discoveries lead to more media coverage. More news coverage fuels more buyer demand. Buyer demand increases auction competition. Competition drives price. And price to headline numbers like $691,000 creates the legend. This is why the story of the 1991 no-mint mark Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin is not just about metal. It is about human belief. It is about the thrill of possibility. It is about the timeless American dream that maybe, just maybe, a single overlooked item can open the door to a better future. Let's go deeper. The most successful coin investors understand something that beginners often miss. Value is not determined by what something is today. Value is determined by what someone will pay tomorrow. And right now, the future for elite American small denomination rarities is bright. Why? Because we stand at the edge of a generational shift. Tens of millions of aging collectors are passing their estates to heirs, many of whom may not realize what is in their possession. Some will panic and sell quickly. Others will have items professionally evaluated. And in that turbulent transition, treasures will surface. Think of the legendary coin hoards, the Randall hoard, the Wells Fargo hoard, the Saddle Ridge treasure discovered by hikers. Do you believe discoveries like those are a thing of the past? No, they are inevitable. because the United States has produced more than 2 centuries of coinage, and only a tiny fraction has yet been properly examined. The 1991 no-mark penny is a symbol of this era, not because every viewer will find one, few ever will, but because its existence proves that miracles still happen in small denominations. It proves that wealth can hide in plain sight, and it proves that history has not finished surprising us. So let me leave you with this. The next time you slide a coin across a counter, look at it, feel its weight. Study the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, frozen in metal. Remember that someone, somewhere, designed it by hand. Machines struck it, workers inspected it, and somehow, it traveled from a minting press into your palm, carrying with it a tiny fragment of American story. What are the odds that one of those coins could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars? Mathematically, almost zero. Emotionally, infinite, because the moment you stop looking, you lose the chance to find one. If this story has taught you anything, let it be this. Collectors don't just search for coins. They search for moments where history reveals itself, quietly, unexpectedly, and completely. The 1991 no-mint mark Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coin is one of those moments, and its legend reminds us that the world is still full of hidden greatness waiting to be discovered. And as long as we keep searching, the next great treasure could be yours.